the best wrestling in the whole world.
Oh shit! It's Vince Russo!
Whoa, hold your horses there, Mr. Nerd, is it?
That's it. You want lucha libras, whatever you call them, go to Japan.
So, Mike, this isn't an angle, and I don't even wish it was an angle.
Welcome, everybody, to You've Got to Be Kidding Me for March 2003. I'm Garrett Kidney, and I am joined by my wonderful, lovely co-host, Liam Jones. Liam, are you prepared to talk about some March 2003 TNA?
Some would say I'm over-prepared. Some would say I fucked up my first sentence in the podcast.
Isn't that always the best when if you go listen to the recent watch-alongs and or Monday War Games, you'll hear me mess up most of my first sentences in the podcast trying to introduce this.
So at least it's fair. I've turned it around on myself.
Or if you go and listen to the Patreon Q&A we did, I accidentally said we put out a call for answers on Twitter.
Haha, we should have posted questions and they gave us the answers and we just read them out. That's even less work for content.
It's like Jeopardy, yeah.
To guess the questions.
If you do listen to that, you'll hear a sudden... That's not a sudden cut. It's a relatively smooth cut where I cut out the word answers and I just say, we put out a call on Twitter. So... revealing the inner workings of my inability to speak into a microphone clearly enough for you to understand without me having to hatch it together in post.
I still suggest that we do the thing of you edit out the word and then just in plain monotone say whatever word you had meant to say. So we put out the call for questions.
I'm a podcasting professional, so if I do edit anything, if I do have to put words in to fix something, I will actually try and, voice match myself.
Yeah, that's the coward's way.
So some admin work, I suppose, before we start. We mentioned this on a couple of the Patreon shows, patreon.com/kiddingme or tnhad.com. But we are finishing up Monday War Games this week, so we do want to know from you, what do you want us to cover next on the Patreon? Anything in the world of TNA wrestling or beyond.
Yes, we'll cover either TNA Wrestling or Beyond Wrestling. They're the two promotions that we'll focus on here.
That is, of course, what I meant when I said or beyond. But yeah, we're out of 2010 TNA. We don't have to watch Raw anymore, which is pleasant. What a boring show that 2010 Raw is. But yeah, if you do want us to cover anything, hit us up on Patreon if you're a subscriber, hit us up on Twitter, hit us up on Discord. You can tell us what to do. Again, dancing monkeys. We will do whatever you want.
Except that.
Dance as a monkey?
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, you can, I guess.
At least we don't have to watch 2010 Raw, though.
You know what? Except that. I will not watch any more 2010 Raw.
Somebody should suggest that we do keep going through 2010 Raw just to make us suffer.
And I'll say no.
It is an exceptionally boring television. It's not even bad. It's just so boring.
And then there's one good one and you're like, oh, imagine if this was all the time.
Yeah, look at all this talent they have. What if they had good matches? Nope, we're going to have the most boring headlock matches you've ever seen and a show with no angles and bad guest host comedy.
That's what I want from every promotion. Just have good matches every week.
Oh, and no angles and bad guest host comedy?
I mean, that can do... Yeah, no, I demand that they have bad angles and bad guest host commentary as well.
It's the best part when MacGruber shows up and has matches with Vlad Kozlov. That's all you want in the world.
Yeah. That show was made for me.
Why? Because you love MacGruber?
Who doesn't?
I don't.
Wonder how MacGruber did in the box office. Let's find out.
Didn't we look this up on the show itself?
No, we looked up the history of MacGruber.
But not whether or not it was a hit.
The budget, $10 million. By the way, the fact that $10 million goes into fucking MacGruber. We can't find a better way to distribute that money except make the movie MacGruber?
No. You're suddenly very hot about MacGruber.
Well, I've just... You know, we just spend so much money on television and movies, you know? So much money. We spent $10 million on MacGruber. Mm-hmm. And it made 9.3.
10 million is not a large budget, and then it made 9.3.
But $10 million on MacGruber.
If you look at the average film, 10 million is relatively low in the grand scheme of things.
It's all insane.
Your average Marvel movie costs close to $200 million.
People are starving. There are like so many people are homeless, and we have to make MacGruber for $10 million.
Hey, those Saturday Night Live people gotta make money somehow.
Yeah, Will Forte.
Yeah, and Kane. Kane is in it.
Yeah, Kane's in a lot of things.
Sadly, including mayoral office.
By the way, in the credits for MacGruber, he is listed as Kane, not Glenn Jacobs.
That's so when he does go into his political career, he was very smart with this. People can't trace back his acting to him. People will be like, oh, Glenn Jacobs, he never acted. Kane? Never heard of him.
Kane won by 23 votes.
Did he?
He won the Republican primary by 23
right.
votes. The actual election by I can't split the difference here, 30,000.
I'd imagine in Knox County, that's probably quite Republican leaning.
Seems so. Poor Linda Haney couldn't handle the devil's favorite demon.
He should have campaigned with that nickname.
I think all of his opposition were like, look at this fucking idiot wrestler guy, huh? Yo, you gonna vote him in?
And then they're like, yeah.
Yeah, why not? It's Kane.
And then he'd do chokeslam stunts on the campaign. It's like, oh.
Did he? That'd be rules.
Yeah, he should have just chokeslammed through somebody through a table. A representation of his political opponent. That's the big finale of his stump speech, where he just chokeslams the representation of his political opponent through a table. And yeah, I'll vote for you.
True.
Because realistically, American politics, all politics, frankly, is pageantry rather than actual substance.
If they spent millions of dollars on See No Evil, I'm about to wild right now.
Yes, every movie costs millions of dollars, Liam. No,
yeah, it shouldn't. Okay, See No Evil cost $8 million to make, but made $18 million.
Yeah, it's a big hit. No wonder they made a sequel.
See No Evil box office. This cannot be real.
What?
$1.6 million.
Yeah, that seems right.
They should put See No Evil guy in, Dead by Daylight or something.
I don't think See No Evil had the cultural cash to demand being put in popular video games.
Nah, put him in there. That's the smash of horror. Put him in Dead by Daylight. Did you see their whole NFTs thing that they went through lately?
I saw people getting mad at it. I didn't look into the specifics.
They were like, no, we swear, but that's not what we're doing, no. And everyone's like, no, that's what you're doing.
No one wants NFTs. Nobody other than the weird crypto freaks that nobody likes, and when you see on Twitter you run away from, wants NFTs in the world. Stop trying, companies. And I know why companies do it, because companies are like, money? So of course they do it, but nobody wants it.
Oh, they can make $20 million and make a shitty fucking movie that no one will ever watch. Do you know that the final shot of the film See No Evil 2 shows each dead member of the cast before a final close-up shot of Jacob's face as he says, I see now, referring to their sins?
Oh yeah, he's seen the evil, thereby ending the franchise. It's deep and metaphorical.
In June 2014, it was reported the movie would not be released into theaters.
On the topic of deep and metaphorical, 2003 TNA, Liam.
Oh.
Similar to recent weeks, there's not a ton of big, juicy news. There's a bunch of debuts and stuff, though. The TVs are juicy, so that's all you come for, isn't it? But we mentioned this last month. Although TNA officials have been boasting about turning away fans at the Nashville Fairgrounds for their pay-per-view events, the company is still handing out stacks of comp tickets. They're everywhere, one wrestler said. You go to a gas station and there will be piles of free tickets just sitting on the counter for the taking, according to PW George.
I hope that gas station is the one where Eric Young had to go to buy rubbers and James Storm caught him.
That was taped in Orlando, so it probably wasn't. But
that is 100% the era of James Storm I'm looking forward to most.
Just comedy goof era?
Yeah, I have such great memories.
It is the best era of James Storm, when he finally grows a personality and it's like, wait a minute, this guy's the funniest dude in the roster. What's happening here?
But to be fair, you see it a little bit at the start when he's goofy cowboy man, but then they got rid of that element of the character so quickly that now he's stoic guy that stands behind Chris Harris while Harris cuts promos.
Well, no, to be fair, he usually does cut his own promo as well.
Oh yeah, he comes in at the end and hits his line.
Except this month they're contemplating breaking up AMW, but we'll get to that in a sec. A follow from the Wrestling Observer on that same story. After the 5th straight Full House on the March 5th show, the decision has been made to slow down in giving away free tickets in a few more weeks. The plan at this point is to not let anyone with free tickets into the building until 6 p.m, so those who pay at least will have the advantage in getting better seats. They're going to cut back in the number of free tickets issued in hope that the people who got in free regularly will start becoming paying customers.
Feels like a better strategy would just be to step up their, like, merch game.
Yeah, try and upsell the people who you do drag in there for free with an AJ Styles t-shirt or something.
Yeah, like, get your concessions up and get your merchandise up, so that way even the free people come in will come to spend money.
I do love that they, on commentary, they are like, oh, you know, we're turning people away, what attendance we've had, because, like, they're just basically the equivalent of hiring a plane and dropping free tickets to your show across the state of Tennessee out of the air is basically their strategy here. So when tons of people show up with those free tickets, they're like, we gotta turn some of them away.
Well, at least people are showing up with the free tickets. It'd be worse if they weren't.
Yeah, if they were blanketing the state with those free tickets and then nobody bothered showing up.
Yeah, that's so much worse.
I believe while I look at the building holds 1,300, and I think the estimates were like usually maybe 500 or 600 were paid, and then the rest were papered. So like half of the people in the building weren't paying to get in the building.
I mean, you know what? I suppose it is still better to have the problem of at least people are showing up. Maybe we can find a way to turn this around into being profitable rather than there's no one here.
Yeah, it would be much worse if, you know, you were getting that 500 paid, but then look how bad it looks in the building and probably how unenergetic it is, as opposed to having a full-looking building that you can do the brag that, like, we turned people away, because they did. It's not a lie. They just happen not to be paying customers. And those people are in the building and hopefully enthusiastic fans.
They probably should have just tried and found a way to, you know, make it more incentivize the people who bought the tickets, which I guess they are with the letting them in first, but, like, you know, have some sort of added benefit, like, hey, you get this, you get to meet and greet, I don't know, some shit like that.
You get to take a photo in the ring with NWA Next Generation.
Wow, I would go just to mean mug Eric Watson.
Jeff Jarrett will hit you with a guitar.
That has to be some premium pricing.
Don West will hard sell you a piece of merchandise.
Well, that's free for everyone who enters, I assume.
Goldilocks will give you a personal acoustic concert of America the Beautiful.
Well, you're going to get that anyway.
Hacksaw Jim Duggan will tell you about his political opinions.
He sure will.
You can have a beer with the Sandman.
Most people will.
Well, yes, that's actually one of the things they give away for free as well, when you think about it.
Sandman will cost you a match. Some random guy will be in a cage.
Oh yeah, you get to do your own dance in the TNA girl's cage.
I have some questions about that.
No, there's no one in the cage at the time. It's just you. You get to take the place of Lollipop or other nameless girls.
No, I have a question about the masked man that was in the cage.
Oh yeah, don't worry about it. Oh, that was one of the auction things, wasn't it?
I assumed, but it was never explained.
No,
it was just a dude in the cage. And I went back through the show, and I was like, why is there a masked man in the cage?
Just a fellow doing his dance in the cage.
It felt like some fucking Eric Andre skit.
Just don't acknowledge it. Just add to the extra bit of comedy.
Yeah.
Make it surreal and strange if you don't actually explain what's happening.
Strange.
But yeah, if you do remember, there was Become a TNA Girl for a Night was one of the auction things. So I assume it was that person.
He definitely bought his own costume, right?
I would hope so. Or they're like, no, we can't put you in that cage. Wear a mask.
Oh, he looked like the dude who steals the pizzas. That little cartoon guy.
Who?
You know, the little cartoon guy steals the pizzas.
No, I don't.
The Noid?
Oh, okay.
He looked like the Noid. Yeah, you know, that little cartoon guy who steals the pizzas.
Yes, of course.
You gotta avoid the Noid, Garrett.
And he was standing there in the TNA cage. You could not avoid the Noid because he was dancing.
Well, he was avoided. He was compromised to a permanent end.
You could ride Horsey Poo. I'm still thinking of things you could do to incentivize the customers. I think we've come up with a good, 15 of them.
You could compete in the Dub Cup.
Yeah. Raven will teach you how to... Well, yes, he'll bleed on anybody these days. I was going to say he will teach you his poetry, but sure, he will bleed on you.
Yeah, he'll teach you how to write... He'll teach you how to write decent poetry, but perform it terribly.
Yeah, so he will go to one of those brick wall spoken word poetry places, stand in front of it, and say it in the most bored, unenthusiastic way imaginable.
Yeah, and forget half the words.
Trinity will teach you some stunts.
Wow, from the movie Elektra?
Oh yeah, she'll teach you exactly how Jennifer Garner did her stunts in the movie Elektra.
Wow.
Vince Russo will teach you how to try and sincerely say things that are untrue, but convince you things are actually true.
I was going to say, Vince Russo will teach you how to abandon your children.
And then cut promos about how they're just punks and little shits and they don't deserve anything.
And then next week, completely backflip on that.
Which is the classic Vince Russo. AJ Styles will not say a slur to you if you pay money on the shit.
But he will look real frustrated while he can't say it.
You just bottle it in. Anyway, Chris Sabol, who was placed in charge of the company by Panda Energy. We've mentioned his name a couple times. Is this Chris
Saban's indie name?
Yes, sure. He was relieved of his duties recently. Not only was he removed from overseeing TNA's day-to-day business operation, but he is no longer working for Panda.
Oh, who will hail Saban now?
Dixie Carter, the daughter of the owners, has unofficially assumed Sabol's old position. The Jarrett family is thrilled with the move, as they often butted heads with Sabol over budget matters.
I bet so.
So by all accounts, they hated him, didn't want him there, and then Panda fired him from his Panda job. Not just he wasn't just taken from TNA; he was also removed from Panda Energy. So,
I mean, that sucks.
Well, so that is the where Dixie is getting increasingly powerful in the company, because obviously she was hanging around. But yeah, she is now the Panda Energy liaison basically for TNA, and that position only grows over time.
I feel like this will be the last we hear of the Dixie Carter name.
Yeah, never going to bring her up again. She's just going to operate in the background, completely unseen, just do her business and never be an important character in the show.
Yes, and speaking of, in 2010, I forgot to acknowledge that at one point it just had, please follow @DixieCarterTNA on Twitter.
That's not at one point, Liam. That's never only at one point. That's every single week for the best part of 8 years.
That rules.
That every week there is a lower third for following Dixie Carter on Twitter.
It's like it's her podcast. She's like, and please remember to follow @DixieCarterTNA.
It's @TNA Dixie, thank you very much.
Sorry, forgive me.
Please remember Dixie's handle.
@DixieCarterTNA will be my new ad.
Clearly their plugs didn't work if you didn't even remember her handle.
There you go.
Literally every week for years and years and years, Dixie's Twitter is plugged on this national pro wrestling television show.
That's so funny.
As if you needed any greater indication that all of this is a Dixie Carter vanity project than the promotion of her Twitter weekly.
I need that Dixie Carter action figure.
Oh yeah, that's a classic.
Yeah.
Do you remember the campaign where they're like, you should take photos of Dixie in weird places?
I bet people took photos of Dixie in weird places.
When that action figure came out, there was this "Where is Dixie" thing to try and sell the figures, where they encouraged people to take unusual photos of Dixie Carter.
Did people take unusual photos?
They sure did. I think there are a bunch of them on Facebook. When we get to that period, we'll dig them out.
Yay.
Because who doesn't want to see the "Where is Dixie" campaign photos? Just like we want to see all the She-Ra Shuffle videos.
I do want to see all the She-Ra Shuffle videos, to be fair.
TNA signed Trinity to a contract.
Good.
Again, we shall remiss over the poor state of Chris Devine and everything going wrong in his life. But Trinity doing well.
Just Chris Devine, not Quiet Storm.
Actually, no, there's a fun note that Quiet Storm has gone to Japan.
Yeah, he's off to GLEAT.
And he never comes back.
No.
I can't remember where he went, but yeah, he's off to a dojo for 3 months.
I'm not sure where he goes at this point. Eventually he ends up in Noah and then goes to GLEAT.
Yeah, but I just find that fun. That's like Chris Devine's life is falling apart, and Trinity's living her best life doing moonsaults on television, and then Quiet Storm's off to Japan, where he will quietly live out the rest of his career.
You know what? In the end, I think Quiet Storm ended up with the best tenure.
He certainly had the longest run in pro wrestling, so go Quiet Storm.
Yeah, still going. Still going, and still going good.
I haven't seen a Quiet Storm match since 2003 TNA.
Yeah, go check some of them out. Go check out him and Muhammad Yone. Good tag team.
To be fair, I more than likely at least saw 1 or 2 of his Noah matches.
Yeah. Wow, not his GLEAT matches, Garrett?
I will get to Glee. Don't you worry about it.
Anyone remember to vote GLEAT for our our Behind the Patreon series where I make Garrett watch every GLEAT?
Well, you did just tell me about Beef Orchestra, so that
No, not Bulk.
Oh, sorry, Bulk Orchestra. Yes,
All in
my
capitals,
mistake.
Bulk.
So that is tempting. Hearing about Bulk Orchestra, a group of beefy men who are going by the name Bulk Orchestra.
And their poses, they all do bicep poses with Nobu on one of their biceps each, also doing a bicep pose.
That's pro wrestling. You know, it's not shooting, it's not spooks. It's just beefy men doing biceps pose while sitting on other beefy men.
That's really what it should be. And all they do is just beat up Shima. That's all they do. So what more could you want from a group?
JJ Dillon has not been backstage for the past few weeks. Another one of those people who showed up, seemed to have a role in the show and then disappeared again.
I thought he was going to stick around.
He will never be seen again. So there you go.
He'll go to Ring of Honor for the ROH CZW feud in a couple of years.
There's basically a lot of people who won't be seen again soon. We'll talk about that when we get into the shows, unfortunately. Including a person who you were worried constantly about disappearing has now finally disappeared.
Chris Rock.
Oh, yeah. Actually, no, this is the month State of Play came out, which brings us to our next point. Phase 3, the Atlanta-based company who designed the TNA logo, sent a threatening letter to the producers of Chris Rock's Head of State movie because they filed a lawsuit they weren't paid over their design work.
How much money did Head of State take to make?
Well, clearly this company was like, oh yeah, this is the end game. We can get the money out of Chris Rock for showing the old logo. And
Garrett.
Mm-hmm.
$35 million to make Head of State.
Why are you so baffled that movies cost
so
this much money?
money?
Have you never looked at a Wikipedia page
I know
before?
how much they are. I know, but it's just $35 million to make Head of State.
Why is this suddenly become a thing that you have become infatuated and quite angry about?
Immoral to spend that much money on a movie that will never be matter.
Oh, so here's Mr. Chris Rock can't make his movies.
No, he should feed people. And it made 38.6.
Well, the production of Head of State fed people, Liam. Where do you think that 38.6 million went
that's
to?
Fair enough. That's fair enough.
It paid people who were cameramen and paid people who
yeah.
were writers and paid people who were directors and producers. It's not
the
like,
film industry isn't immoral. It's actually important.
but it's where people do get the money for their job.
Yeah. You know what? People in Hollywood aren't pieces of shit. Actually.
You say that as if like people elsewhere.
No, this is
aren't...
genuine. This is genuine reaction.
No, it's not. Don't you do this to me.
No, I'm legit.
I don't believe you. This is like Vince Russo. It's like, no, this is real. This is I'm not doing
this
a
is
bit.
real.
No.
This isn't an angle. This is real. I'm leaving the podcast forever.
Christopher Daniels is expected to be offered a contract with a raise. He's talked with the company for a few weeks that if he got a deal with a raise, he'd cut back on his Michinoku Pro dates. And Jeff Jarrett has been very impressed with his work from the Wrestling Observer.
Excited for that big main event push.
So Daniels is in as a regular because like the big issue, and it's not a thing you see as much anymore, but like the number of people who are working Japan dates was causing TNA a great headache because like Amazing Red would disappear for a month or two. It'll become an issue with D'Lo Brown, who does a lot of All Japan dates. Elix Skipper does All Japan as well. Loki does Japan. And it's like all these guys, like the Japan dates take precedence because TNA is not offering them full-time contracts for the money worth giving up to Japan dates. So they take the Japan dates and then disappear off TV even though they're really good.
Yeah.
Did you ever play EWR? It was like the precursor to TEW.
Yeah. I played the hell out of it. I play TEW literally every day. You think I didn't start with EWR?
So, yeah, in EWR, the big issue I always had running TNA was like people would always just disappear to Japan. It's like, no! Why are you going on 3-month tours of Japan? I need you, Elix Skipper.
Well, that was always the thing that made me swap from EWR to TEW, because I actually got to play as Japan.
So, yeah, I'd have all those problems. And it would always be like, oh, and this is the pay-per-view. We spent weeks building it up. What's that? You don't do Sundays.
Yeah. Well, that still happens now in, like, TEW, too. You'd be like, oh, I've built up everything, and then you'll check the dates, and suddenly they took a booking for that day.
Yeah, it's very annoying.
I imagine it would have been even more annoying in real life.
Yeah, you can imagine how it feels when you play those games, because I think it is easier in TW because you just move the show to a day where they're not booked elsewhere, if that is possible, if they have a day available, as opposed to EWR where they were just gone for 2 months.
It was always such a tease too, because you'd see like all the Japanese guys like names that you want to book, and you just couldn't book them either.
Yeah.
Like, if you're playing EWR and you're like, ooh, Shinsuke Nakamura, I'd like to bring him in. And it's like, nope, that's just not a thing you can do.
So those are the pains TNA are currently going through with all these people who have Japan dates. And
I've never related to something more.
and many of them just stop working. Like, I'd imagine that's an issue with Steve Corino as well. I quite liked in the Wrestling Observer, Dave Meltzer was like, there's real definitive signs of a pickup of business. It's like the first 2 shows of March do sold out numbers with a higher than usual paid number, and the pay-per-views seem to be like trickling up from 7 to 10,000 toward the 10 to 13,000 range. So there seems to be a uptick in business, and then toward the end of the month, it's like maybe that uptick in business wasn't real, as they struggle to get 1,000 people in for the next couple of weeks.
Well, they burnt out the local territory. But internationally, everyone's still buying it. Australia, still putting in that money.
Obviously, once Vince Russo stopped showing up on television, they were like, oh no, we can't go anymore.
I mean, the numbers don't lie, and they spell disaster for Jeff Jarrett.
And that is your big notes. There's no big notes as mentioned. We're in a period of stability, so not much big going on in these months.
You want stability in my TNAs.
But before we continue with the show, You've Got to Be Kidding Me is brought to you this week by HelloFresh. With HelloFresh, you get fresh, pre-measured ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. Skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. Fall can be hectic, but HelloFresh's recipes save time you'd otherwise spend on meal prepping, grocery shopping, and shopping. So you can focus on getting back into a new routine and spending quality time with the family. HelloFresh offers 50 menu and market items to choose from every week, including vegetarian, calorie smart, and gourmet options, providing plenty of variety. As somebody who is very busy and has very little time, and I was always looking to find more time for the good things in life, HelloFresh is a great option to save that time on cooking and give you the delicious meals you want and the time to spend after it doing the things that matter to you. Go to hellofresh.com/VOW14 and use code VOW14 for up to 14 free meals, including free shipping. That's hellofresh.com/VOW14 using the code VOW14. Don't worry, there's plenty of fun notes within the shows themselves, which brings us to broad topics, starting with sex. Not Vince Russo-less month, but a very Vince Russo light month, even though the specter of Vince Russo did continue to hang over the show.
Yeah, constantly. Every time you started the show, it'd be, Mike, I'm leaving the business.
So yeah, the first show of the month, March 5th, 2003, NWA-TNA pay-per-view number 35. Well, it didn't begin, but there was a promo in there with Mike Tenay and Vince Russo. Vince Russo was like, Mike, I saw Kurt Hennig die, and...
yeah, fucking like... And he's like, oh, I hate to say it. No, you don't!
And that made me realize, it made me put things in perspective that I need to spend more time at home with my family after my kids buried me last week and I buried them in response. But now, no, I've recognized what they said is true. So Mike, this isn't an angle. I wish it was an angle, which that feels like a candidate for a show opening quote, but...
It's not an angle, I wish it was an angle.
Yeah. It's really, that kind of captures the spirit of TNA. Like, this isn't an angle, I wish it was an angle. So Vince Russo has decided to step away from sex, step away from being an on-air character with TNA, and he's going to go home to his kids and his family and be happy out.
And beat the shit out of them.
Well, maybe that's what happened, Liam. He went home to Will that night after the pay-per-view, after Will buried him on national
Maybe Will
pay-per-view.
kicked his ass, and he's like, oh, fuck, maybe I gotta stay.
Well, I was going to go, he beat his children and then felt guilt over it. But yeah, maybe it was. He tried to beat up Will and then he realized, oh shit, Will is not like 5 anymore. He's actually a teenager who can beat me up in retaliation.
Also, I told him when I was going to attack him. He just waited around the door when I walked in and jumped on my back and beat the shit out of me.
He just swung a baseball bat in my face the second I stepped through the door.
Damn, I didn't think this through.
While BJ was biting my ankles.
Maybe he went home and Child Protective Services were just waiting for him because he said on pay-per-view that he was going to beat his children.
It was like, no, bro, I wish it was an angle. It's not an angle.
No, he's like, wait, shit, no, it was an angle. It was an angle.
So Vince Russo has seen the light. He's gone, which does leave a big void in sex.
Who will step up to be the leader in sex?
There's a power struggle between Glenn Gilberti, Mike Sanders, and Sonny Siaki for the remainder of the month to determine who will be the leader of sex. It's not very good stuff. I don't want it.
The first 3 episodes really stunk of it.
Because, like, for as much as Vince Russo was an overbearing, annoying presence on the show, he was at least a good performer, and the things he did were interesting to talk about, which is the nature of Vince Russo. It's like, it's not good, but it's watchable and interesting.
Yeah, 100%.
As opposed to the Gilberti and Siaki and Sanders stuff, which is, it's not good, nor is it interesting.
Nor do I want to watch it.
So when we get into the shows, we'll talk more about the stuff because they're all over the place in terms of what they're actually doing, because they're in multiple different feuds with multiple different people. This is a very weirdly spread sex month.
Yeah. Trying to think of a pun.
Leave you as long as you need.
I'm blanking here.
Be better if it was a kinky sex month, am I right? Instead of weird sex, kinky, weird.
That was worse than my silence.
Speaking of weird sex, a lot of the things...
Yeah! Bring it back! Let's go!
Gilberti, Sanders, and Siaki spent a majority of the month trying to get women to show their boobs for some reason, and not even trying, succeeding in some cases.
Yeah, like, not only do we have this giant power struggle within sex, we all have to divert our attention to exposing breasts throughout the month as well.
I don't know why, and it's a thing they're actively trying to do. It's like, we're going to get Athena to show her breasts. They say it in a pre-tape at one stage. It's like, why?
It's like their their campaign points. This is the thing I'll be running on, is that I will get Athena to show her breasts.
And that proves my ability to take over as the leader of sex.
Yeah. That it proves that I am responsible for directing sex.
So on the March 12th show, there's a segment where Hollywood, the new member of sex...
Get it? Hollywood?
Wood. Yes, Wood. Who is also feuding within sex with Desire.
Yep.
But Siaki demands that somebody fight Hollywood and eventually settles on Lollipop, who fights Hollywood, Liam.
I believe it was Sanders, wasn't it?
Was it Sanders?
I think it was Sanders.
Either, it's one of them, I don't care. So yeah, they come out and eventually Lollipop walks down the ramp, takes her boots off, starts doing a cat fight with Hollywood, and her boob comes out.
Her boobs.
No, it's just a single boob. Only one of the boob came out at first.
I thought they ripped off the whole top, didn't they?
Yeah, that's eventually what they did, which is quite the weird bit. Because, like, while she was doing the cat fight, she had not just a nip slip, it was, like, literally a full boob came out of her top. It's blurred on the Impact Plus version, and actually wasn't blurred in the original version.
It's on pay-per-view. Why would you ever blur?
So, eventually, they do rip off her top, and Jerry Borash covers her up with a jacket. But I found it quite amusing that it's like, oh, her boob just flat out came out, and now the angle is that they rip her top off, even though, like, it just came out while she was brawling with Hollywood.
It was an interesting character development that we didn't see, like, horny JB at all in this. It was just pure concern for Lollipop.
You see, it was Ed Ferrara who was the bad influence on him. Once Ferrara's gone, JB is an upstanding, moral individual, as opposed to back then the debauchery days where he would have tried to grope her while covering her up.
This Ed Ferrara, he's a bad locker room influence.
Yeah, as opposed to now where the JB is just like, you know what, I need to protect this woman from the indecency of what sex I've just done to her.
Well, you know, it's not a segment that would happen nowadays, is it?
For many reasons, I don't think so, no.
No, and, you know, as long as she was, like, cool with it and got money for it, you know? I hope she was compensated for her time.
And ideally, her boobs would not have just come out in the first place.
Yeah, well, you know. Why didn't the fucking Noid get his boobs out? Why did no one drag him out of it?
Gender standards, Liam. This is just totally unfair in the world.
This is bullshit.
Siaki then pivots to feuding with Athena. As we mentioned, he drops her on her head with a pile driver.
slaughters her. I was watching this like with like my housemates, and like they could see it, and he just looked over and was like, "Ah!"
Because he does the thing where he pump handles her into like a tombstone.
It's like a Rikishi driver.
Yeah, with a little pump handle deal beforehand, and like he just spiked her right on her head.
Just super dangerous.
After he was trying to get her to show her boobs and she refused, and then he started insulting her boobs and was like, oh, well, we don't want you to show your boobs anyway, even though, like, literally, you said backstage your entire plan here was to get her to show her boobs.
Wow, classic beta. I know, maybe Sonny Siak is just on that Sigma grind set that we don't understand.
We've had enough Sigma males on this show, Liam.
Sonny Siaki is the next Sigma male.
Well, if pile driving Athena makes you a Sigma male, he is one of them.
I get all this Sigma like shit on my YouTube now, and I don't like it.
Why do you get it, Liam?
Because I searched up Sigma to take photos of it to send to people. And now I get Sigma grind set fucking guys who are like, oh, you know, like videos of like Walter White, and they'll be like, the Sigma walks up to the group of alphas. And it's like clips from Breaking Bad, just with Sigma commentary over it.
I think that's the kind of content you actually want and actively seek out in life, which is the reason YouTube is feeding it to you. The algorithm understands you better than you understand yourself, Liam.
But I can't tell if it's like ironic or if it's like genuine.
Which is really the problem with the world now, isn't it?
Because it feels like it could just be some like dude making a meme that other people are taking seriously.
Which is where the entirety of QAnon came from, so it wouldn't be a surprise.
Yeah, it does feel very cute.
Literally, a goof on a forum just spiraled out of control. And had legitimate horrible effects in the real world. God, the internet sucks.
Yeah, really, it was a mistake.
So after he dropped Athena on her head, Siaki feuded with David Young for a little bit. David Young defending the honor of Athena, of course.
He's bestie.
So they went to have a match. A perfectly nice little match between the two of them.
Yeah, it was about as good as it gets, huh?
As we mentioned on the watch along, that if Siaki and David Young were one wrestler, they would probably be a perfect wrestler.
Yeah, you know, the charisma of Sonny Siaki and the workability of David Young.
Desire came out, no contest, and then Siaki dropped Athena again!
Yeah, but didn't do the pile driver.
No, just the Siacalypse neck breaker this time.
Because that would make too much sense. Maybe she was like, I don't want to take that again.
Listen, she took it once, and they did show a replay of it 3 times, so you know, that's worthwhile, but she doesn't want to take it every single week. She doesn't want to be dropped on her head by Sonny Siaki on a weekly basis.
Everyone else has to.
I would like to be dropped on my head by Sonny Siaki on a weekly basis, but apparently Athena doesn't.
I'm just imagining this whole segment, but with you walking out in the neck brace instead.
And then Siacalypsing me.
It's David Young's sitting there and like, no.
Well, actually, we forgot to mention the most important part of this match. Siaki's pants fell down the entire time.
Yeah. But he owned it. And like, that's the thing. He just whipped his ass out and he's like, yeah, whatever. And the crowd got into it, so...
Yeah, because his belt came loose, and then he was like, oh, this is a cumbrance to my...
No, he did it to himself. He took the belt off to whip David Young.
And yeah, then he pulled it off, he threw it down, and then his pants started falling down. But as you mentioned, he did own it. He started flashing the crowd, and yeah, go Sonny Siaki.
With his G-string that he was wearing.
Yeah, I don't think there's anybody who doesn't want Sonny Siaki's pants to fall down in that crowd.
Yeah, we saw some cheeks. This is a very a cheek-heavy show.
Cheeks was only on NWA-TNA paper number 2, Liam.
Where's the brown-eyed girl?
So that's the power struggle stuff. It continues through.
Oh, power struggle. Hey, we got a Carter and Tamatonga. We got Zack Sabre Jr. Shingo.
They should bring Glenn Gilberti into New Japan for that power struggle.
Who would you put him with?
Gilberti against Yano, of course.
No, I was gonna say put him in the House of Torture.
The other things we had, Jarrett feuded with the Fail Sons for the month.
Yeah, and he enlisted Dusty Rhodes.
So yeah, we get this feud where Jarrett, Dusty, and the debuting D'Lo Brown feuds with Eric Watts, David Flair, and the other guy, and the Brian Lawler.
The other guy.
I'm surprised you didn't get mad at me for getting Brian Lawler. I'm sorry.
The other guy. The best guy in the group, and he's the other guy.
Hey, David Flair is the best guy in the group.
That is not true.
You know what? There's moments where I was watching David Flair this month where I was like, I'm actually okay with old Dave.
There was one time where I was like, I like David Flair. And it was when him and Brian Lawler were in the ring with Dusty. And because I looked at them and I was like, this is Shaggy and Scooby. David Flair is Shaggy and Brian Lawler is Scooby-Doo. And that should be their shtick.
He does make many Scooby-Doo faces.
And like David Flair's like out of it too, so he's kind of like, yeah, you know, it works. I like these two should be goofball henchmen together the entire time.
Brian Lawler should start doing the Scooby-Doo voice.
Yes, he basically is.
What up, David? I'm Ruby-Doo.
Like, Dusty's like, that's charisma. He's like, it is.
We'll get to the Dusty David Flair segment in a moment. But first, unfortunately, we have to talk about many Eric Watts promos.
Eric Watts sucks.
Uh-huh.
And he sucks in such an unfortunate way in that he feels like he thinks he's a main event guy while he's sucking.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I said this to you in Twitter, but I was like, 2003, Eric is a WWE main eventer in 2021, based purely on the way he carries himself. He would do everything to a T that they want him to do in 2021 WWE.
He would be in a stable and then feud with Baron Corbin.
Yes, 100%. He would be Baron Corbin.
I have a take about Eric Watts, Liam.
That he's the worst second generation guy in history.
No, I was going to say he's the worst thing in TNA history so far. I cannot stand Eric Watts on these shows. Like, he is unbearable. He does his first big promo on the show, on the March 5th show, where he interrupts Jeff Jarrett in the ring. And he just talks forever about absolutely nothing at all. He's just like, Jeff, you did something. I'm not going to say what you did, but you did something and it hurt my career, but I'm not going to say exactly what. My dad was fine. My dad loved me. My dad pushed me, except the entire premise of our stable is we hate our dads. But I actually hate you, Jeff, because you somehow ruined me.
Because you're my dad.
He keeps talking, and as you said, he thinks he's cool, which is, I think, what makes it the most unbearable, which is the contrast from Flair and Lawler, who are operating like goons. And it's like, yeah, you're goons, that's fun. As opposed to Watts, who just thinks he's a badass, cool guy, and this is his final opportunity to get a real push in the wrestling industry. And it's horrible. He's so bad. He's one of the worst promos I've ever seen in my life. And the worst part is, he gets a ton of promo time. He talks a ton on these shows, and he's horrible.
Eric Watts is an interesting one, because he is the perfect example of what one of TNA's biggest problems is right now, where it's like guys who should just be mid-card goofs are pretending they're main event guys. And it's infuriating. Like, just let Disco be a mid-card goof. Just let Mike Sanders be a mid-card goof. Just let Flair and Lawler be mid-card goofs. Just let Eric Watts be a mid-card goof. Because none of these guys are main event guys.
So you're not looking forward to a potential Jeff Jarrett-Eric Watts match?
I mean, maybe. I don't know. Eric Watts is my second least favorite guy in TNA history, so...
Oh, who's your least favorite?
It's BG James. I have no time for BG James.
I would watch a BG James promo or segment before I would watch an Eric Watts promo or segment.
I wouldn't, because it'll have less slurs, gay bashing, and terrible references and jokes that don't land. I'll take incoherent rambling over that.
So, yeah, Watts is feuding with Jarrett, then pivots into a feud with Dusty. Well, I suppose Watts isn't really feuding with Dusty. Dusty is more feuding with the other Fail Sons.
The goons.
Dusty is feuding with Lawler and Flair.
Wow, Dusty's feuding with Lawler and Flair on TNA? That's crazy.
I know, and Watts is feuding with Jarrett. It's listen to all these names, Liam.
Wow, I wonder how many people tuned in because they thought, wow, Flair and Dusty?
But yeah, on that March 12th show, we did have, I think, the best segment all month, which is Dusty Rhodes in the ring with David Flair and Brian Lawler.
I loved it. I loved it so much. I loved every second of it.
Because we did get the big reveal at the end of the March 5th show, where we finally saw, after the Raven and Sandman Clockwork Orange House of Fun match, David Flair did reveal that he had the NWA title belt in his satchel, and that's what he's been hitting people with. It's his dad's old NWA title.
I'll take a victory on that for saying it was a belt.
even though you said it was the wrong belt.
Whoa, we don't have to bring that part up.
So the next week, Dusty's like, you don't deserve that belt, you're not champions. And then Brian Lawler and David Flair are very upset. But then Dusty does a turn. It's like, you want to be king? You want to be king? And Brian Lawler's like, yeah, I want to be king, like my dad. And then Dusty's like, give me 5. And he slaps Brian Lawler in the face. And it's like, you can be the king of these nuts. And the crowd go nuts.
And the crowd goes fucking insane.
It's like the biggest pop in TNA history for that Deez nuts delivery.
And the best part is, hits him with the D's nuts, and then they close up on Brian Lawler's face, and Dusty just starts throwing hands. He doesn't give a shit. He's like, he hits him with the D's nuts, then he's gonna heat him up. He doesn't care about anything. And then bam, hits the double elbows. Eric Watts runs in, and then it goes downhill a little bit.
Yeah, then D'Lo and Jarrett make the save to set up a 6-man tag for the next week. But that's the segment. Dusty is like so insanely charismatic in the entire segment. He's just like the coolest guy in this company because he's a guy who can actually cut a promo and he's not being a nerd.
He's the best guy in the company.
Easily. Like, he's the biggest star, he's the best promo, he's the only guy who's like a good baby face, like up and down all of these shows.
And he looks like he's having fun being there. Like, it isn't just a paycheck for him.
He's just having a good time, and like as we mentioned, by all accounts, he was looking at like, oh, maybe I can get in and get the book in this company. So
I desperately wish we lived in the timeline where Dusty got the book in this company.
So yeah, Dusty rules. I love him so much. Even like the next week or the last week of the month, Dusty does this promo from his farm.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Or he's like getting weapons for his bunkhouse brawl. He's filling up his wheelbarrow with the weapons to beat up David Flair with, and he's just doing a Dusty promo. And like, oh, Dusty, I love him. He's like maybe even the only good thing about this month, but he's great. Dusty is great.
Someone suggest for our paid stuff that we just do a Dusty retrospective. I want to see Dusty.
Watch Dusty in his prime. Watch some great Dusty promos. And like, this is Dusty in his prime. This is Dusty just being his charismatic self. He's not like a main event act, though he does get some title shots coming down the line. You can look forward to those. But
I am.
Dusty Rhodes, man. What a charisma. Who would have known that Dusty Rhodes is a charismatic pro wrestler who can carry a wrestling show even into his probably 50s at this stage?
Dusty Rhodes, currently my front runner for 2003 TNA Wrestler of the Year.
He is the best wrestler in the company. It's undeniable.
Just tremendous stuff. I love Dusty so much.
And in the last show of the month, he does have a bunkhouse match against David Flair where he just utterly squashes him in 2 minutes.
And you know what? This is what Flair should be doing, though. You know what I mean? He's pretty good in this. I was fine with it.
Well, I regret to inform you that is the last David Flair match we will cover.
I mean, good, but also sad.
Watts continues through the month on NWA-TNA baby number 37. He has an interview with Mike Tenay where Mike Tenay is just like, you're saying nothing. Why aren't you saying anything?
Just answer my questions, please. Even Russo answered my questions.
He was so frustrated and bamboozled by this Eric Watts interview where Eric Watts spoke in riddles and didn't say a word, and Mike Tenay just makes a face at the end, which I gifted. It was a wonderful Mike Tenay reaction face where he has like a half smile and it drops to like just utter disdain toward Eric Watts.
You know what? You know who would have got the answers out of Eric Watts?
Who?
The interrogators.
Nah, that's the mistake they made. They invited him on the Mike Tenay talk show instead of the rapid fire Mike Tenay Don West interrogation.
He could be like, Bill Watts. Dad, I love him. Jeff Jarrett. Oh, he did this one thing. Ah, you almost got me, Mike.
It's Don's presence. The crossed arms of Don's with the stroked chin of Mike Tenay is a combination that cannot be denied.
I mean, it's just too powerful.
So Jarrett, D'Lo, and Dusty defeated the New Generation in a 6-man tag match on that same March 19th show. I thought a nice little match, mostly because they built to a hot tag quite well. It wasn't anything special, but it was pretty good.
Yeah, it's alright.
And then after the match, Watts drags Jarrett out to the back. He ties him to the back of a car.
We're missing the turn.
We'll talk about Truth in a minute. Truth's a separate thing.
Okay.
Truth is a whole different topic for this month. Ugh. But yeah, Watts drags him all the way to the back, puts him in the back, ties his neck into a noose.
And you're like, holy shit. How are they gonna do this? How are they gonna get away with doing this? It doesn't look like this is... I mean, it's not rigged up in any way. Holy shit.
Because yeah, he slams that noose into the hood of the car so that Jeff Jarrett will be dragged behind the back of a car. Eric Watts goes around to the front, teases, driving away, dragging Jeff by his neck, which would have been a cool spot, but they didn't do it. Watts then walked back to the back of the car and it's like, you think I'm going to murder you? It's like, yes, that's expressly what you tried to do.
And it would have been cool. Why didn't you do it? That's a much better wrestling angle than just teasing doing it.
In typical Eric Watts fashion, he was deeply disappointing in a way you did not even expect.
I had zero expectations and you still ruined them, Eric Watts.
He went back to Jarrett and he was like, oh, you know that I could have ended you. I'm Eric Watts. I think I'm cool.
I'm the rated R superstar, Eric Watts.
He does have like fake Edge 2006 energy, doesn't he?
Yeah, without the charisma.
So we get another very long Eric Watts promo on the last show of the month where he just talks and talks and talks.
I didn't remember this one. I just kind of ignored it.
It's the one where Jarrett hit him with a guitar in the end.
Yeah, the first real guitar shot from Jarrett.
Yeah, so Jarrett finally broke out the guitar because he was fucking sick of hearing Eric Watts constantly talk.
You know what? Fair enough.
That promo spun in some other directions, which we'll get to in a minute, because we're going to talk next. After we've, I think, dealt with all the fail-son stuff. We didn't give Brian Lawler enough credit. His facial expressions in that Dusty segment were great.
Yeah, Lawler's great. Like, I was telling you earlier, this started as an, like, ironic love for Brian Lawler, but now I legitimately think he's good.
He's so good in that segment, where it's like, when Dusty is like, oh, you want to be king? And he's like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's like Scooby. He's got his tongue out, and he's like, yeah.
And when he's slapped, and when the Deez nuts line is delivered, he's like puffing his mouth in and out. It's like, he's very good. He is very good.
It was great when Dusty's like, you're out here like a fool, and he starts to take his jacket off, and Dusty just looks at him and goes, now boy, you don't want to do that, getting all naked on me. And the crowd goes nuts.
Oh, Dusty is so good.
Getting all naked on me.
I love him so much. I'm so happy he's on these shows.
I wish like our intro was like triple the length, because if it was, I would advocate for Deez nuts being added into it.
It's probably too long. Well, you know what? We'll end the show
with Deez nuts.
We'll put the Deez nuts quote at the very end of the show for our dear listeners.
Yes.
That is a thing to listen all the way through to the end, so you can hear the wonderful Dusty notes. The Dusty notes.
Dusty noids. You gotta avoid the noids. He hits it so perfectly. It's also one of the best Deez nuts I've ever heard in my life. Like,
it does help that the crowd went absolutely apeshit for it.
Of course they did.
D'Lo Brown made his TNA debut in this year month of March.
He broke out of the prison that housed Malachi Black and Buddy Murphy.
Yeah, if you've seen any of those prison metaphors going all the way back to John Moxley's, they stole it from 2003 D'Lo.
Well, technically, I think he's an AWOL soldier, not a prison escapee.
Or is he? Because like the thing is, he's held captive by an oppressed regime, which is or an oppressed dictator is the words they use. So
I guess is he a prisoner of war?
Well, when you think about the phrase oppressed dictator, that means the dictator himself is being oppressed, not doing the oppressing. So clearly Vince McMahon is actually the victim in this D'Lo Brown debut.
D'Lo has been oppressing Vince this whole time.
So now he's escaped the shackles, he was free. These are the words used in the vignette that aired before D'Lo Brown showed up. Which, yeah, is this weird thing where it's like he's escaping a military dictator to finally be free here in the NWA-TNA.
It's so hilarious. And it's so non-fitting for D'Lo.
No.
It's a perfect vignette.
And like D'Lo doesn't even acknowledge it or anything. He just comes out and he does cut a kind of anti-WWE promo, but he's not like, I'm free.
It has nothing to do with his character or anything at any point. Like, it immediately goes to like his funky "Are You Down" like graphic that he has.
Which, by the way, D'Lo's theme song as well. Great stuff.
It's a weird one. I don't know how I feel about D'Lo's theme.
It's a bang.
I don't know. It's a little plain.
No, it's not. It's like super upbeat.
Yeah, but it's like, it's not very, I don't know. It doesn't have a lot of, it needs a little zhuzh.
It has plenty of zhuzh. It's like I'm gonna play it underneath it if I can find it, so the listeners can make the decision for themselves about whether or not this is a good piece of music.
I'm doing the head wobble.
D'Lo Brown's neck muscles.
My neck is cracking every time I do this.
Yeah, if I move my neck in the slightest bit of the wrong direction, my back will blow out and I'll be like debilitated for a day. Whereas, like, this dude is throwing his neck in directions that I did not think he could even throw a neck, and he is fine. This man must have the strongest neck muscles in the history of necks.
Got dizzy from whipping my head around like D'Lo Brown.
He's a marvel. That is his true talent, his ability to move his head and neck without having to spend 2 weeks lying in bed without moving.
Also, like, Cuddy's promo here, Siaki comes out and confronts him, which is like, wow, 2 major stars right here.
Sonny Siaki and D'Lo Brown, yeah.
Yeah. And then they get into their physical confrontation. D'Lo hits all of his moves and they look crisp as hell. It's cool, fun little segment. And I gotta admit, D'Lo really felt like a star here.
Yeah, he got a huge reaction when he came out.
Yeah, huge reaction, cut a great promo, looked in great shape. Looked like a star here.
And as you mentioned, when he hit the lowdown and we hit the sky high, great stuff. And they like hit his music mid sky high, which I thought was like really cool. Like while he was in the air, they hit his music and he came down. It's like, yeah.
Maybe we could try and track down some of that old Japan stuff and see how his work was in this time as well.
Oh, his 30-minute time limit draw with Joe Doring. Oh no, it was Kojima. He has a 30-minute time limit draw with Kojima.
What?
I think so. Yeah.
I need to see that.
So. D'Lo, yeah. I'm excited to dip back into D'Lo's TNA stuff, because D'Lo is like one of those guys who's super underrated.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. And I know that he has some like pretty highly touted stuff with AJ as well. So
yeah, him and AJ make it for a very fun tag team.
So I'm looking forward to it.
So during D'Lo Brown's appearance on Chicago Sports Radio, he said he hasn't felt this good in 8 years, which is in reference to his TNA debut, and he was very happy with the locker room atmosphere. Everyone in the back has been really professional, said D'Lo Brown.
I'm surprised. Well, clearly because Russo's left,
Though in a radio appearance later in the month, he did confess that he hopes to return to WWE someday.
Ah, D'Lo, you were going so well.
But he is happy for the time being in TNA. He left, like WWE just didn't renew his contract, so he was available to jump, and he jumped.
I didn't find D'Lo Brown versus Kojima, but I found D'Lo Brown versus Kawada.
Oh, if you remember, D'Lo did return to WWE in 2008. Remember that?
Oh yeah.
His weird 1 year return where he did nothing and got fired again.
Yeah, and then he became a backstage TNA guy for a while.
Yeah, he's currently color commentator on Impact. So there you go.
Official TNA guy, D'Lo Brown.
Yeah, I think we can crown him that. D'Lo, you're a TNA guy, and people don't think of him as a TNA guy.
I think it's mostly because a lot of his run was backstage.
Yeah, and he hasn't done a ton of notable in-ring stuff, other than Aces and Eights, of course, Liam, which we will come to in a very long time. So the big thing for D'Lo for the month is that part of his contract, part of his going to TNA, he was given an NWA title shot.
Which is a dope way of immediately putting someone else into, the main event contention.
And it's funny, we were looking at his cage match and we noted that his Ring of Honor debut was also a World Championship match against Nigel McGuinness. So this is clearly something D'Lo regularly negotiates. But that naturally puts him at odds with Jeff Jarrett immediately. So Jeff and D'Lo have a bit of a strange bedfellows thing for the entire month going on. Can they get along? Can they coexist? Why do they hate each other? The thing I really didn't like at the end of the month, there's this big in-ring segment with Sanders, Gilberti, D'Lo, and Jarrett. Where, the crux is that Gilberti's like, we will get you your title shot, but if you win, you have to join Sex. And I'm like, he already has his title shot. It was in his contract. He doesn't need the Sex offer of a title shot. What's going on here?
I think D'Lo's point is meant to be that, he wants it now, but, Raven has the claim ahead of him. So Sex are like, we'll let you get the shot before Raven, if you join with us.
Sex apparently have this kind of power.
Well, because Raven's a tentative, member of Sex, I guess. They could convince Raven to hold back.
And the thing is, they did want to push the Jarrett-Raven match down the line so they could build to it more, which will be one of the big matches we'll talk about when we get to April. So, yeah, I guess so. I still don't like it. I don't like to... Because, the very first thing he did was a tease of Sex. Siaki came out and offered him a spot in Sex, and he turned him down and beat up Siaki. And then the rest of the month is still people trying to get him in Sex. I'm like, ugh, no. You already said no.
Feels like everyone's first thing when they join the company is, hey, will they join Sex or not?
Or they beat up the Harris Bros.
One of two ways to go.
Go after the Nazis or be offered a spot with the Nazis. That's one of the two ways you debut in TNA. Allegedly, Nazis. Yes, allegedly. So, yeah, D'Lo has an on and off again feud with Jarrett. He has a match with Chris Harris later in the month.
Yeah, it's a okay match.
Yeah, it's basically just to give him a quick little win, so he's heated up for his match against Jarrett.
Over someone credible.
The more interesting thing about that Chris Harris against D'Lo Brown match is that they were thinking about breaking up AMW at this stage already, Liam.
I mean, I'm shocked to hear this in the Vince Russo-led company.
A note from PW Torch. TNA is planning to break up the America's Most Wanted tag team. Management see Chris Harris as a top babyface, or a potential top babyface. Meanwhile, sources say even Harris was reluctant to tinker with the winning AMW formula. No word on what the company has planned for Harris's partner, James Storm.
Well, and as we know, here in 2021, that's exactly what happened. James Storm fizzled out, and Chris Harris went on to become a legend of the company.
Yes, they broke up right here in 2003, and then decided that Harris was the best guy ever, and Storm never did anything.
Damn, what a shame. Remember when Chris Harris showed up in NXT for a couple weeks? That was weird. Remember when James Storm was on WWE ECW?
Imagine if they had different careers. Very strange.
Not even different, if they had each other's careers. I was a big fan of Cat Money.
To be fair, I do think Storm probably would have done better in WWE than Harris if he went into like 2007.
Yeah, but he would have been a comedy joke cowboy, man. He would have been what he was in the first episode of NWA-TNA.
He probably would have stayed employed longer, though.
That is fair. Yeah, he definitely would have stayed around.
And isn't that truly the only goal of going to WWE, is to stay employed for as long as you can?
Get as much money as you can.
So we will monitor the potential AMW breakup as it doesn't happen. No, you might be surprised. It doesn't happen. They don't break
what?
them up. But they thought
that's what I thought the first episode of next month is.
Storm turns on Harris. He's like, how dare you have a match without me? Wow. I find you guilty of infidelity.
You should go after D'Lo then.
So the other big kind of sex-related thing is Styles and Raven, who have a feud through the month for number one contendership.
Which is kind of bad?
I didn't like... They have two matches. One on NWA-TNA pay-per-view number 36, where they went to a double pinfall draw. And then one on NWA-TNA pay-per-view number 37, March 19th, where they have a ladder match. I liked the ladder match. I thought the ladder match was pretty good.
They took some big, stupid spots, which I appreciate.
We also, before we get to those, we should talk about Raven and Sandman had their blow-off, the Clockwork Orange House of Fun match, which actually featured the debut of Kevin Sullivan.
Which I was into.
So the first show of the month, March 5th, starts with Raven cutting a promo. And once again, Liam, I've written down the Raven promo.
Here we go!
Life is a tapestry, weaved by the gods. And those who are singled out for this divine birthright, again, my Raven impression sounds much more like James Mitchell, have two choices.
You need more pauses in here. You're remembering it too well.
Oh, sorry, yes. They can fight it, or they can face it. Well, I have turned the other cheek for far too long. Lights flicker out. Oh, sorry, the light, that's stage direction.
Whoosh, lights.
Because midway through this, while he's cutting the promo, which is an important note in a second we'll come back to, the lights kind of drop, and you can see, like, the confusion on his face. He's like, what?
He's like, Sabu?
I have not been devout because pain and horror are holy things, and by believing in the darkness, we are elevated, and by elevating us, we elevate ourselves when we destroy, and when we destroy, we are cleansed. Welcome to Raven's Clockwork Orange House of Fun. Quote the Raven, nevermore. He does another one on the second show of the month, which is just as bad, but I didn't write down.
Next time. We can only have one Raven promo read a month.
So just as he finishes this promo, you hear somebody say, like, well, and then lights drop, show cuts out. Because the power cut in the building.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
So TNA went off the air for, I think it was like 3 or 4 or 5 minutes while they were trying to get up a graphic came up. TNA will be right back. Like, Kevin Sullivan actually cut his promo during this time. Like, he didn't know the lights went out. He went through his entire promo. And
you didn't know the lights went out?
Oh, no, I guess not. Maybe the microphone still worked? I don't know. He did his promo twice.
Yeah, but the lights were out.
I hope he just screamed it at Raven. But they did, a few minutes later, get back on the air, and it's not actually in the Impact Plus version. If you go back and watch the original version, which has a few more seconds before Kevin Sullivan starts cutting his promo, Kevin Sullivan is like, all right, let's do it again, I guess.
Yeah, he's like, all right, let's do it again, I guess. I will not be a referee! I will be an observer!
So Kevin Sullivan does his entire promo for a second time because there was a power failure in the building.
Awesome. Just, this is the stuff I'm here for.
from PW Torch, before the outage, TNA officials were under the impression that a backup power generator would kick in automatically in the event of a power outage. Even now that they know that's not the case, they do not plan to make the switch because the financial investment would be too steep.
Come on, Dixie. You're in charge now.
TNA officials believe the blackout was caused by a power surge, some video packages were destroyed, and there was also some minor production equipment damage.
Awesome.
So this is not quite building catches fire. We'll get to that in 2006.
Excuse me?
Don't worry about it. But we are here in building loses power and show goes off the air for 5 minutes and Kevin Sullivan has to do his promo twice.
Hell yes. Big Kevin Sullivan guy. Big fan of this.
But that does build to the main event. Raven defeated Sandman in the inaugural Clockwork Orange House of Fun match, in which Raven bled more than any human being should bleed for a match like this.
Until the next week, where he bled more.
But the problem is, he cut himself so deep here that the wound literally could not heal. Like, you know, on commentary, I think it's on during the ladder match with AJ, they are talking about how, like, Raven's cut keeps on opening because he cut himself so deep. That's a shoot. He's cut himself so deep that he cannot, in fact, heal the wound quickly enough before he wrestles again. And when he wrestles again, the wound opens again, and it just does not heal.
Jesus Christ.
Because if you look at him after this, like, he is caked in blood. It's like one of the worst blade jobs you'll ever see. And worst by, I mean, like, lots and lots of blood. Like, his hair is just red, his face, and it's like, it's literally like you threw strawberry jam in his face and covered it all over. That's how much he's bleeding. In this, like, nothing match against the Sandman as well.
Excuse me, this is the Clockhouse Orange House of Fun.
I wonder, is that it? Like, this is the debut of my signature stipulation match, so I must bleed to an extent that anybody possibly wants, but I will get over my own stipulation match if I do it.
I think he just respects the bit.
So he must bleed to an extravagant degree.
Yeah.
I know from this match, and I noticed this actually while Sandman knocks over us, the Raven's Nest sign hovers over Raven's, like, perch in the top of the stand.
It looks like shit.
It's a horrible sign, but I noticed he knocked it over while they were brawling in the stands. I was like, I wonder if it fall on anybody. Turns out, it did.
Awful.
A note from PW Torch, a young fan was hurt when Sandman accidentally knocked the Raven's Nest sign on top of him during last week's main event. Part of the sign fell onto the fan and left a large cut on his head. The fan and his parents were ushered backstage by security or were introduced to the wrestlers and sent home with a load of merchandise. Don't sue, don't sue, don't sue, don't sue. All the office has downplayed the severity of the situation. One wrestler who saw the kid said he was about as bloody as Raven was. Which...
I wish if the kid was a worker, he would have walked backstage, done the Raven pose, and been like, I am the sanctity of the sanctuary. Everyone follow me through the darkness, and I will lead us to the light. But I am not your Messiah, no.
The Sandman took pictures with the boy and then ducked back in the corner of the locker and placed his head in his hands and cried because he was distraught because he nearly killed the kid.
Oh, poor Sandman. Sandman rules. Poor Sandman.
I was going to spin off into Raven Styles, but let's do Sandman, because the next week is one of my favourite matches in TNA history.
Yeah.
Where the Harris Bros wrestle Steve Corino and Sandman.
A match that will be in, like, by the time this is up, on our Twitter, basically in full.
So, Sandman's doing his entrance after Corino's and the Harris Bros have already made their entrance. So, Sandman's going through the crowd, he's drinking, he's smoking, he's having fun with the fans. And then the bell rings. And the Harris Bros continue to beat on Steve Corino. Steve Corino makes his own comeback. They hit him with the H-bomb. That's a horrible name for a move.
I was going to say, like, in Corino's defense here, like, he gets, like, 70% of the offense still. Like, he's hidden stunners, he's, like, hidden strikes, he's beating them up. They kind of get him on, like, a banana slip H-bomb. And
pin him, while Sandman turns around and is like, hey, wait a minute.
Yeah, Sandman turns around when, the 3 is counted. And he's like, wow, what?
He's busy trying to get people in the crowd to drink his beer. I absolutely adore the idea that Sandman's partner was pinned because he was too busy doing his entrance.
It's awesome. Sandman rules.
There was an even better one, frankly, at the end of the month, where the main event of the last show of the month is the Sadistic Madness match, or as James Mitchell likes to call it, an S&M match.
Please say it as Raven, as James Mitchell.
A Sadistic Madness match.
There you go.
The rules of the Sadistic Madness match are as follows. You must bleed before you can be pinned or submitted. So the tactical advantage is to try and avoid bleeding, and therefore you cannot lose the match. Sandman, however, makes his entrance, his usual entrance, which involves downing a can of beer and then smashing that can of beer off of his forehead.
Sorry, I just want to mention, in this case too, Sandman went to the extent of bringing like a 12-pack down with him too. It wasn't even a couple cans. He bought like the box.
He wanted to make sure he could make himself bleed. So what does smashing a can of beer off your own forehead, particularly Sandman's particularly vulnerable forehead, do? It makes him bleed before the match even begins. And like the announcers are burying. It's like, what the hell would you do this for? You put yourself and your team at such a tactical disadvantage because you made yourself bleed.
I wish his team were pissed about it.
Perry Saturn just starts shooting on him.
Yeah.
Sandman. What a character. What a character on this show Sandman is.
I love him. I love him, so I hope he never leaves.
So then we do have the two Styles Raven matches. The first one, as I said, on the March 12th show, I didn't particularly care for. I thought it was actually kind of bad.
It was okay.
And then the ladder match I thought was better because they just did some cool ladder match moves.
AJ took a lot of bumps in it. I like the logic here that the TNA officials thought it would be too much in Raven's wheelhouse to make it just a plunder match, so they added the ladder match stipulation to give AJ a chance.
Yeah, so it evens things out. It gives them both their like strategic and stylistic advantages.
I really like that. I thought that was a good touch.
So a note from the first Raven AJ match. Raven spent the night in the Atlanta emergency room following his match with AJ, the first one. Raven drove back to Atlanta after the show, but immediately sought medical treatment at a local emergency room for a pair of cuts on his forehead. The first cut was actually self-inflicted from a blade, which Raven used during the match with Styles. Raven cut himself so deep that it wouldn't close. And remember, this is the week after he did the Sandman blade job. So again, he continues to stab himself in the forehead, and these cuts are not healing.
Wrestlers rule.
He needed plastic surgery for that. And then the second cut occurred on the March 19th show when Styles hit him with the handle side of a trash can, which bust him open again.
Which Don West, was aghast at.
He's like, he hit him with the other side. That's much worse.
That's because he talks so much shit about AJ. AJ's like, fuck you, I'm going to hit you with the other side of the can.
And you'll note, Raven wasn't on the March 26th show because he asked for it off. It's like, I am bleeding so much every single week. I need a week off for these dumb freaking cuts on my forehead to heal.
Please. I'm hurting so bad.
He needs a plastic surgeon to sew it together just so it starts to heal.
And the glue doesn't work anymore.
My God, Raven. So much blood from Raven on these shows. Okay, I think we're through all the sex stuff.
Sex sales. Well, yeah, I guess, so, yeah, I was going to say, the Russo stuff is, repeated throughout the month, but it's only really the one segment, so. Yeah,
you see scenes from that one segment multiple times, and, Jeff Jarrett does an interview at the end of the month where they mostly talk about that segment as well.
And also he does one on the same show where that happens, and he's like, the annoying part about this whole Jarrett Russo stuff is every time he can, Jarrett's like, Russo's not that bad of a guy. He's kind of just a passionate guy who really believes in the things that he's into. And you're like, Jarrett, no! Hate him!
I like the way Mike Tenay is the opposite, because he brings Mike Tenay for that interview, and then Russo's like, you don't believe me, do you, Mike Tenay? Mike Tenay's like, no. And Russo's like, that's because you're too deep into wrestling. It's like, no, it's because you spent a lifetime being full of shit. Also,
because this isn't real. It's a storyline that I'm a part of.
It is actually a shoot. Oh, I didn't even read the note from frickin' the Torch about how basically they're trying to convince people this is a shoot again, even though Russo's backstage at every show.
Cool.
For whatever it's worth, some TNA officials are being told that Vince Russo's retirement speech was a shoot. However, Russo was backstage at the show and his vignette was taped in the building, not at his home as was claimed as part of a storyline.
I was going to say, his home looks like shit if that's his house.
That's just a random room in the building with a computer in it. There's also, Dave Meltzer notes in The Observer that Hennig is actually a very bad example to use as somebody who was away from his kids, given he spent most of the prior 11 years, with his kids every week.
It's almost like he was just going for shock value and not for an actual point.
Which perhaps makes it feel even sleazier to use the death of Kurt Hennig in this stupid wrestling angle.
Guy who was here, a month ago.
Yeah, and he's passed away, and we must use his passing as a dumb Vince Russo crutch for a dumb promo that we're going to try and once again convince people is actually the case until Vince Russo inevitably returns to television.
No, I'm pretty sure he's never coming back.
Oh, yeah, sorry. He did say it's not an angle. He wishes it was an angle.
I wish it was an angle.
So we had many other debuts this month. One of the bigger ones was Jim Duggan. So Jim Duggan makes his debut on the March 12th show, I believe.
Yeah.
Or was it? Yeah, March 12th. He makes his debut in a match against Mike Sanders. And Liam, I'm again going to make a bold claim, is the worst match in TNA history to this point.
Oh.
This match, it wasn't even that the match was bad, but this match was 6 minutes long.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't hate it, honestly. I thought it was... I mean, I gave it 1.5 stars. I just thought it was, old guy beating up a guy and crowd getting into it and going, whoa, and that was it.
If this match was just... Because Jim Duggan was a surprise opponent for Sanders. Sanders was trying to prove his worth and sex, and Duggan came out and beat him. But if this match was a minute long and Duggan squashed him, I'd like, yeah, fine. Because the next week there's a Moondog spot and Jim Duggan against Sanders and Gilberti match that is about a minute long, and Duggan and Moondog spot win. That's fine. This match went 6 minutes and it felt like 30. I have never felt a longer 6-minute match in my entire life. It just kept on going. They had a real match, Liam. I have no idea why they had a real wrestling match. It was so bad. Made me suffer.
I mean, yeah, it definitely wasn't good, but I just didn't hate it as much as you.
Then the next week, Jim Duggan comes out on the eve of the beginning of the war in Iraq.
About time! Oh!
Jim Duggan starts the show cutting a promo, first of all, burying France and Germany for objecting to the war.
Shit, France and Germany!
Rallying the troops of Australia, Britain, and the United States for going to war to take down Iraq. Then he says the Pledge of Allegiance. Then he tells a story about how one of his daughters was like, Daddy, are we safe? And then Jim Duggan was like, I don't know, but I'm going to cut a promo on Saddam Hussein anyway.
Cool.
So yeah, this, again, the US went to war in Iraq, a deeply unpopular war, even at the time. So you needed, there was a lot of this in American culture and American society, because there was a lot of people objecting to this entirely warranted war based on false pretenses. So a lot of people were like, hey, wait a minute. But then there was the big pushback. It's like, you don't support the troops. It's like, no, I'd rather the troops not die for no reason. It's like, you don't support the troops. It's like, all right, shut up.
I love the troops.
So it's very strange to get this full-on military jingoism to kick off an NWA-TNA pay-per-view.
Hey, this is the one that was broadcast in Australia, so fair play to them.
They did put over the Australians as being part of this alliance with the United Kingdom and Britain to invade Iraq.
Yeah, where was Ireland, huh?
We are a notoriously neutral country, Liam. We stayed neutral in World War II.
Sounds like cowardice to me.
We are one of the most neutral. It's like, we're not picking a side. We're the people who just sit in the middle and pretend to be above it all.
Wow. And after the US saved you from your potato famines, how dare you turn your back on them? Despite
the fact that we do allow the US to use one of our airports to refuel their planes, but still, we're neutral.
Oh, wow. This is what Maggie Thatcher was all about.
Because that has a lot to do with it, yes.
Yep. I'm just saying buzzwords. Just hoping that they connect in some manner of offense.
Famine, war, Thatcher.
Yeah.
Troubles.
Bombings.
So there was a note in the PW Torch that TNA planned to use Jim Duggan as the TNA Goodwill Ambassador, so he wasn't meant to have a regular role.
No, he didn't get much goodwill from us.
He gets goodwill from the US troops.
USA. Come on, Garrett. USA. Come on, everyone. USA.
We did have some more America fuck yeah moments where Goldilocks and Dale Oliver opened the following show with an acoustic version of America the Beautiful.
Dale Oliver!
Yeah, the first we've seen of Dale Oliver on camera here in TNA.
Playing guitar just like Eric Bischoff.
Yeah, and his fancy pants.
Yeah, he did wear some very fancy pants. There was also some chemistry between Goldilocks and Dale Oliver, and I hope that they explore this further.
There were some longing glances. Some deep looks into each other's eyes as they sang that song.
Well, it's a very horny song, isn't it?
So we also had the debut of Perry Saturn.
Oh yeah, he just threw dudes. It kind of ruled.
Yeah, so he showed up in the main event after Malice apparently disappeared. I didn't see any notes about why Malice disappeared, but, well, Malice disappeared.
He was in the promo that Mitchell cut and then just didn't show up the next week.
Yeah, because he returned the week before, beat up all of the Triple X and people. Looked really cool, actually. He just showed up and chokeslammed everybody.
Yeah, he powerbombed Daniels, and Daniels took a great bump on it.
So then Malice disappeared again, never to be seen again. So the main event was the New Church of the last show of the month, was the New Church and Sandman and Perry Saturn against Sex's team of the Harris Bros and Triple X. And as you mentioned earlier in the show, Perry Saturn showed up, threw around Triple X, threw around the Harris Bros. Same thing in the main event. Perry Saturn rules.
Yeah.
And like when he showed up, you were like, "Oh no, Perry Saturn's here." And I was like, "No, Perry Saturn is
No,
really cool."
I didn't say, "Oh no, Perry Saturn's here."
There is audio evidence at TNAchat.com of your full disinterest at Perry Saturn's TNA debut.
I believe it was more indifference than disinterest.
Disinterest and indifference are more or less the same thing.
No, disinterest implies negative connotations. Indifference is just like whatever.
I'm pretty sure indifference also implies negative connotations.
Nah, indifference is more neutral.
It's still pretty negative.
I don't think indifference is negative. I think indifference is indifference. Could go either way. Could be some good, could be some bad. Hey, oh.
If somebody says, "I am indifferent to you," do you two ever take that as like, you know what, I'm not going to be upset about this person saying this thing to me?
I would never be offended by someone being indifferent to me. In fact, I encourage it.
But yes, I was very excited to see Perry Saturn throw some dudes around, and Liam was like, "No."
Yeah, that's exactly how I was.
Again, audio
wait.
evidence. TNAchat.com. You can hear it for yourself in the watch along.
We got him. This is all. We're just working a storyline right now, so they go buy the watch along.
This isn't an angle. I wish it was an angle.
Yeah, I'm leaving the podcast forever.
But yes, Saturn showed up, threw people around, and he wasn't the only one who showed up for that main event, Liam. Also, we had the TNA debut.
World's largest love machine.
Of Viscera, Mabel.
I'm chucking up the V's right now. Big Daddy V.
Big fan of Big Daddy V. He showed up, he dropped Chris Daniels with the choke bomb. He was a pal of Ron Killings, who we'll talk about, I guess, in a second as well. But yes, the debut of Viscera.
I'm into this. I love Big Daddy V. I'm ready for this run.
I enjoyed the note in PW Torch. Virtually nobody in TNA expects Mabel to be in for more than a week or two.
Aww.
So he did join Ron Killings, who had a month. So first couple of shows of the month, he was standing in the crowd. He was watching. He was like, "Oh, what's Ron Killings doing? How does he feel about all these things that are happening?"
I didn't even remember that. I don't remember him being in the crowd.
Says Mr. I didn't even watch these shows.
No, I watched these shows twice and I didn't even notice him in the crowd.
He was there for the first show. The second show, he disappeared. Then third show of the month, he makes the save for Jarrett and Truth and all those. Jarrett and Dusty and D'Lo. They're being attacked by Sex. Truth comes out, saves them, and everyone's like, "Oh, Truth is on the side of tradition, blah-de, 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 blah." Then later in that same show, when Jarrett, D'Lo, and Dusty beat the New Generation, Truth then comes out and attacks Jeff Jarrett.
No!
So we just do not know what is happening with Truth. He is turning face and turning heel within the same show. Like, legitimately, I think he's, like, we always cite Big Show as the example of somebody who does just random turns at any given moment. I think Truth is a bigger example here in these early days of TNA.
To be fair, I think everyone in TNA is a better example because no one stays the same alignment for more than a month.
But, like, Truth doesn't stay the same alignment for more than, like, 2 segments.
Yeah, let's be real. Jarrett has, like, swapped back and forth, like, 4 times in the show before, so I don't think it fucking... Like, everything here is just as up in the air.
I don't know, like, I think for the most part, Jarrett was a heel until Sex, and now he's a babyface. As opposed to Truth, who is legit, like, I don't know. Like, he attacks Daniels, like, Viscera attacks Daniels in that main event segment. So he's back to being a babyface, despite the fact the week before he turned heel again when he attacked Jarrett? I don't know. I like Ron Killings. I want to cheer for Ron Killings. Why are you making it so hard?
Yeah, because they don't know what to do with him.
So this month we had the continuing feud between Jerry Lynn and Conan, a feud that you bizarrely hate despite the really cool matches that happen in it.
I don't hate this feud.
I'm so upset because if you go to the $1 tier on our Patreon, you can see our star ratings, which I will reveal. Liam gave the Super Crazy versus Jerry Lynn match that happened on the March 5th show 2.5 stars, even though that match kicks so much ass. That match ruled.
I don't know what you're talking about, Garrett. If you go and check those stars, it says 3.25.
That's still too low. It's minimum 3.5.
I don't know what you're talking about. It's a perfectly reasonable...
I'm going to bully you into giving this Jerry Lynn Super Crazy match the credit it deserves.
I did! I gave it 3.25. It was really slow at the start, and then they did a bunch of really cool spots at the end.
No, they just went straight to doing cool flips and exchanges, and Super Crazy did like 17 different kinds of moonsaults, and they dropped each other on their heads a bunch, and the crowd went nuts for it all.
That's not true! It started off slow.
You are disparaging the good names of Super Crazy and Jerry Lynn. This, by the way, is Super Crazy's only TNA match.
Yeah, he definitely should have been brought back more, because he did rock in this. Remember his spinning powerbomb? Remember how cool that was?
Yeah, I do! That's the reason I thought the match ruled.
Just because of the spinning powerbomb?
And all the moonsaults. He did like 17 different moonsaults.
Yeah, good stuff.
We will talk about Super Crazy briefly in 2017 again, where he has technically a match that airs on Impact but doesn't happen on Impact against the Hardys. But until then, we will never speak of Super Crazy again. This is his only match and you buried it.
I didn't bury it.
You were like, I never want to see Super Crazy again. This Super Crazy match was the worst thing I've ever seen. Why is he booked in TNA? I wish Jerry Lynn wrestled good wrestlers. Conan has never been more wrong when he was talking about these Lucha Libre guys. I heard you say all that with your star rating.
Yeah, 3.25.
You gave it 2.5 like an absolute monster. A scoundrel.
Yeah, and then I rewatched it.
Not giving Super Crazy the respect he deserves. And then the match I didn't like, but you did for some reason. Damien 666 and Halloween against Jerry Lynn and David Young.
Yeah, this match rocked.
Which apparently you thought was better than the Super Crazy match.
Yeah, just a banger tag match. I like Halloween like Damien. What's the problem?
A fun note, La Parca was scheduled to appear on the pay-per-view, but he couldn't get his paperwork processed quickly enough. So,
the chairman.
So Halloween and Damien 666 were replacements for La Parca. And even David Young was a replacement for Paul London, who had, I think Mike Tenay said, an intestinal virus. So hope
Rough.
Paul London's doing okay there, but he was meant to team with Jerry Lynn here against Damien 666 and Halloween. I think the same with the following week with Jason Cross teams with Jerry Lynn. So
that would have been a couple of banger tags.
You're a bigger fan of Damien 666 and Halloween than you are Super Crazy, is what you're saying here?
In the NWA-TNA in 2003.
The following week, Conan and Jerry Lynn they don't team together. Conan and Hoovy defeat Jerry Lynn and Jason Cross as this feud continues.
That was the one that I liked least of the bunch.
Nothing really happened in it. It was more just to tease dissension. Again, like the story here is that the Lucha guys keep on losing and Conan snaps on them all the time. But then they cheated to win here. My favorite part of that match actually is if you notice at the very start, like Conan is famous for wearing his very sagging pants. And you'll notice if you watch very closely, there's a moment where Juventud Guerrera tries to pull up Conan's pants. He's like, it's
so silly.
It's sagging too much. I need to pull up your pants.
What a good friend.
And then last show of the month, we get the big match: Jerry Lynn against Conan.
It was bad.
Conan should not wrestle more than like 1 minute matches.
No.
He does not seem, and like he's perfect for the 6-man tags he's put in soon. But until that happens, not a good spot here for Conan. The story is after the match, a masked luchador attacks Jerry Lynn. The masked luchador is played by Shark Boy, in case you were wondering.
Who is this guy?
That is a story we will see play out over the coming weeks. Who is this masked luchador and what does Conan know about it?
It looks like shit.
Yeah, so he hit Jerry Lynn with a Rana and ran away. After Jerry Lynn defeated Conan, presumably ending his feud with Lucha Libre and proving the X Division is superior in the end.
No, he should wrestle like all the Japanese juniors. Bring in Liger.
That's not going to happen for another 2.5 years.
Well, listen, Russo's in charge, and like he said, if you want your Lucha Libres, go to Japan. So bring in some Japanese talent.
No, they should send Jerry there to wrestle them in their home country, in their home promotions.
Go to a Best of the Super Junior.
And air them all here on NWA-TNA.
Yeah, please do that, please.
So other stuff in the X Division this month was mostly the Kid Cash feud with Amazing Red.
I like how you're skipping over a debut.
We'll hover back.
I don't appreciate this. We clearly have debuts lined up as the second broad topic, and you're skipping over to the X Division.
What's the one you want to talk about?
Alexis Leray!
And what does that relate to?
Oh no.
What did I just segue to? And now you're giving out to me.
He's got me there.
Alexis Lurie debuted as part of the Amazing Red Kid Cash feud, which I just pivoted to, and then you're giving out to me.
Oh no. Oh no.
Amazing Red, Cash feud through the entire month. March 5th show, they have an X Division title match in which they do the Amazing Red and Loki sequence in slow motion and they miss half of the spots.
The stomps are so bad. Cash does the little head stomps and they're so shitty.
It's like comically bad how bad an imitation of the Loki Amazing Reds, because like they did the Loki Amazing Red spot in TNA as well and it looked fine, and they do it here and it's looked awful. It's awful.
And like that match does get better towards the end and they start hitting like stuff a lot crisper, but at the start of that match was so disjointed. Like they felt like they're on two completely different pages. It ended up being like it ended up having enough giant explosive spots that I liked the match, but the start of it was so rough.
Yeah, I think I gave the match 3 1/4 in the end because I agree. I think it turned into a pretty darn good match by the end of it. But as you said, just these two apparently, like they've wrestled before. This isn't their first match. Why do they suddenly have such bad chemistry?
I don't know.
I think it's even their third match, isn't it?
First one with Trinity at ringside.
That's the difference maker, and that's what Red thinks. So the entire of this feud is built around the fact that Amazing Red is very angry at Trinity. He believes Trinity is protecting Kid Cash's belt, and if it were a fair one-on-one match, Red would beat him. But it just makes Red look like a bit of a misogynist jerk, where he's just...
But also, he's kind of not wrong. Like, Trinity does keep interfering in these matches.
But at the same... There's something about Red's delivery that just makes him seem like the asshole.
Well, yeah, because he's like a cocky heel now.
But he's not. He's a babyface. He's still like he's meant to be likable here. He's meant to be like the injustice is against him.
I don't know. I like cocky shithead Amazing Red. It's pretty great.
I believe entirely unintended.
But it kind of rules. I like the backstage segment that they have where Cash says something on the lines of I take everyone on one. Hey, even tonight I'll take 2 on 1. Blah blah blah. And then he comes up and Red starts talking shit in his like Brooklyn accent that I can't do, and he'll be like, "Yeah, leave her in the back. See if you can win it by yourself. Everyone knows that you're only winning because she's out there." He walks off, and then Cash just goes, "What was he talking about?" And Trinity's like, "I don't know."
So the second show of the month, we get Cash against Amazing Red against Johnny Storm making his TNA debut.
Johnny Storm has the worst theme music I have heard ever.
I don't even remember registering it.
It was just like... It was like sort of like a generic... And then on top of it, it was...
I don't know. Based on your impersonation of it there, that sounds like a bop.
No, it was fucking awful. It gave me a headache. I had to turn it down.
Maybe that's why you don't remember anything on these shows the first time you watch them.
Yeah, Johnny Storm's music gave me an aneurysm.
But it's cool to see Johnny Storm on these shows. He's not around for long, so appreciate him while he's here and his bad music.
I will not.
But Cash retains against Red and Storm. Then the next week we get Cash against Red against Trinity because Red is like, I will fight you all.
Trinity should have won this.
Yeah, this match ruled, where it's mostly Red and Cash just doing a decent match, and then at the end Trinity just goes wild, hitting her Ranas, hitting her Tornado DDTs, hitting her moonsaults, before Cash sneaks in and gets the win again. This match, so good.
Yeah, they should have strapped her up here. She looked great. The week before, she had a pretty rough week. Where she moonsaulted and missed everyone and just landed on her face.
Oh, I was watching it as well. If you watch it, you see it's like, oh, she doesn't look over her shoulder. You know, she's not like Red's in position. She just trusts Red to be there.
Yeah.
So she goes up top, moonsaults to the floor, and Red's not there.
And then Johnny Storm crushes her. Like, just out of nowhere comes from the other side. You can see the clip on our Twitter. But, like, jumps off of the other one and just slaughters her.
Yeah, it literally just splats her.
It's a rough, like, minute.
Poor Trinity. Not having a good time here in this 3-way match. Then the final show of the month, Liam, finally we get the debut of Hardcore Country Alexis Lurie.
Yeah, she's really mean.
She is. Again, meant to be the babyface with Red, but she shows up and just starts shouting at Goldilocks.
It calls her a bitch.
Why does everybody hate Goldilocks on these shows?
I don't know. It's like everyone hates her, but they also have like a begrudging respect for her. Because like she never gets like attacked in like the sex locker room, you know what I mean? They all are willing to talk to her, but then they'll be like, all right, now fuck off, Goldilocks. But they'll never like physically get involved with her, you know? Like, so there's some sort of respect there, but no one likes her.
It is a bizarre dynamic.
Only JJ Dillon liked her, and he lasted a week.
Maybe that's why he got fired.
He's like, you're too nice to Goldilocks. There's a policy backstage.
So that leads us to a match where Red and Alexis Lurie lose to Kid Cash and Trinity, where Trinity got the pin on Lurie and Kid Cash was not pleased.
Trinity and Alexis... can I call her Mickey? I really hate calling her Alexis Lurie.
You can call her Mickey.
They were bad in this.
Yeah.
Like, all over the place. Spots were disjointed. Didn't look like they were prepared to be ready for spots. Looks like they were thinking about everything they were doing. Just wasn't great here. I think Alexis Lurie wore a shirt that said green on it, which was very funny. Yeah, like, obviously, you know, Mickey becomes one of the best women's wrestlers in America. So she does get it eventually. And Trinity can be really good in her big high spot stuff, but doing this tag match together, they were both real rough.
Yeah, because Trinity's not a good wrestler. She's not. And that's fine.
She can hit her spots like a killer.
Yeah,
but
she can hit her Tornado DDT and her Moonsault and her Hurricane Rana like nobody's business. But ask her to string that together in a wrestling match, it's a disaster.
yeah.
So when her and Mickey were in there, it was chaotic, and it's just they just start shooting on each other most of the time because of the miscommunication.
The AEW formula.
Where it's just throw bombs if stuff falls apart.
Yeah, like Red Velvet should have also been in this match.
At least there's women wrestling on the show. That's a plus.
Yeah, unfortunately they had like the worst interaction of anyone on the show, but
I don't know.
To be fair to them, Cash and Red, like the week before or 2 weeks before, also had like a completely disjointed mess of a match, so.
It was just as bad for a while, yeah. And of course, Jim Duggan against Mike Sanders is still the worst match of the month, so they're not worse than that either.
Yeah.
So that's X Division, which brings us to the tag teams, the big thing of which Triple X regained the tag titles, which they were vacated from.
Which is just funny.
They just didn't have the belts for a month, I guess. They defeat America's Most Wanted in the second show of the month on March 12th in a pretty darn good match.
It was a good match, not a great match.
It's funny, like, I didn't think this was a great match, even though there was just a point in it where I'm just like, AMW were just such a great tag team.
Yeah, I thought the same thing, where they were so smooth and so consistent in it, but still just not a very exciting match. I guess like everything they did well, but they didn't really go above and beyond.
Yeah, there was just everything about the way they set up the heat and the way they did the comebacks. I'm just like, God, AMW is really good at this, which is funny that this is the month where they're contemplating breaking them up. This is the month where even like the AMW have a match the week before where they lose to Gilberti and Sanders for reasons beyond comprehension. But
who then lose to fucking Moondog Spot and Duggan.
You got to build up Gilberti and Sanders with that win over AMW so they can lose to freaking Duggan and Spot. But even in that match, I had the same thing where I was watching that AMW against Gilberti and Sanders match, and AMW were making their big, like, fiery comeback, and I'm like, God, these two are such a good tag team. And there's pretty much nothing else to say about tag teams this month.
Yeah, the tag team division kind of stinks.
It's just that they're not doing it. Like, Triple X are great champions. They're, like, great pro wrestlers. Even, like, the New Church and AMW, great pro wrestlers. It's just...
Yeah, but they're just not booking them in anything, so it kind of is like, eh.
Yeah, because there is a Triple X against New Church match, which is where Malice Makes the Save shows up. There's just nothing else going on in the tag division. There's a New Church against Hot Shots match. You want to talk about that?
Not really.
Well, there you go. That's tag teams for the month. Nothing going on except a title change where the team that had the belts and were vacated won the belts back.
And they might be splitting up their best team.
Yes, they may in fact be splitting up America's Most Wanted, but thankfully they don't. So that is us done with broad topics. Liam, if you'd like to go show by show.
Boy, do I!
March 5th, 2003, from the TNA Asylum. 1,300 people in there, sellout, heavily papered.
Heavily papered. The Hot Shots are gone. And they are also kicked out of sex.
Oh yeah, and they looked like such nerds when they came out for that New Church match.
Terrible gear.
Yeah, they just looked like dorks. I just never want to see them.
Yeah, and then after their like 2 weeks of being in sex, the Harris brothers kick them out.
Good.
Literally kick them out of the arena.
Because the Harris brothers are the people rallying the troops of sex these days to keep them on the same page.
And we get some stuff where like over the month where like Sanders is pretending to be Siaki, and Gilberti slaps him in the mouth, tells him to pull his shit together. Oh, we didn't talk about the main thing!
What's the main thing?
AJ Styles dropping slurs, baby!
I was gonna get to it, but sure, if you'd like to go straight to the last show of the month, we will talk about AJ Styles opening that show, where he walks in, he kicks in the door, he brings a chainsaw to the sex locker room.
What? A motherfucking chainsaw. What?
Which is not the most dangerous thing he had with him. The most dangerous thing he had with him was his mouth.
The most dangerous thing he had with him was homophobia in his heart.
Yeah, so he's cutting this promo on Glenn Gilberti. The funny part of it, as much as dropping slurs can be funny, I guess, is like he goes to say the F word at like the start toward Gilberti, and he does catch himself and doesn't finish saying it. So he's like, and he moves on. And then at the very end of the promo, he's like, blah, 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 blah. It's like, you, and he drops the slur then, and it's like, AJ?
Like, it says here from PW Torch that the belief is that he ran out of things to say and simply said that he got nervous. That seems like what happened. It seems like he didn't know what to fucking say, and he was like, stumbling for anything. Because he also fucked up saying when he wanted to meet them in the ring, and Disco Inferno had to save his promo. Gilberti had to be like, what, 30 minutes? And he's like, nope, 30 seconds.
AJ, not a good month for AJ. It's actually, there's a funny note as well in the Wrestling Observer that Styles was publicly critical of the company, as privately several other people in the company have told us, for the incident where Lollipop showed her boobs. Styles is very religious and had been uncomfortable with some of the things WWE had done. So, like, this same dude is like, this woman showed her boobs, but then 2 shows later is like, I'm gonna drop a gay slur.
Oh man, the hypocrisy of religion.
Who would have thunk it? Yeah, AJ had a shockingly good match with Mike Sanders.
Yeah, it ruled. They had a banger.
It might well have been I'm not familiar enough with Mike Sanders' entire body of work to say this confidently, but it might have been the best match of Mike Sanders' career.
I can't think of a better one.
Certainly not in TNA.
No. Because, like, this was like, I don't know if I went 3.5 or 3 3/4, but I went high on this.
Might have been, like, the best match of the month. You went higher on this than you went to the Jerry Lynn Super Crazy match, which does upset me.
Yeah, this is better than the Jerry Lynn Super Crazy match.
Ugh, you're a monster.
And that one's not even a bit. Like, this is better.
All right, you jump straight ahead, so let's go back to the March 5th show. Mr. can't keep himself in order.
I'm sorry, I just remembered that happened.
We do get mention of Raven's destiny at the start of this show, which is a reoccurring theme in Raven's promos. You will be hearing him talk about his destiny for a very long time.
Yay.
Which is a thing Alberto Del Rio then ripped off, where he started talking about his destiny.
Destiny. I mean, it's not exactly it's a pretty standard go-to for a guy to be talking about their destiny.
Yeah, but the destiny of becoming world champion. It's the time together. It's Raven's promo. Del Rio stole it.
Okay, I didn't know it was so defensive over Raven's promos.
Only when I'm not walking them. You were very worried in recent months that every Jorge Estrada match you might have seen is in fact the last Jorge Estrada match.
No! Garrett, no!
Jorge Estrada's victory over Disgraceland here on March 5th is in fact the last Jorge Estrada match we will be covering. I'm sorry to inform you. Jorge's done. It's the end of Jorge.
My heart.
A man who seemed to have a lot more potential than he was ever allowed to fulfill.
Oh, man!
So, at least he defeated Disgraceland. He conquered fake Elvis and rode off into the sunset. That's how I'm viewing to see it.
Where in the world is Jorge Estrada?
That's a good question, to which we do not have a good answer to. During Eric Watt's very long promo on the show, the crowd just started chanting, "We don't care."
Yeah, it's great. And then they're right, we don't care.
During the Gilberti and Sanders match against AMW, Moondog Spot shows up at ringside.
And I was like, who the fuck is this?
But my favourite part is Don West very earnestly suggests that perhaps Moondog Spot is the new leader of sex.
He should have been. That would have ruled.
He doesn't even do it as a joke. He's just like, you know what? He might be the new leader of sex, Mike.
Yes. Yes, he should have been.
Mike Tenay had a sit-down interview with AMW during the show where they were all wearing like matching leather jackets.
He is the 3rd member of America's Most Wanted.
It is a good look.
Yeah.
We had Kid Cash doing an interrogator segment.
It was a pretty sultry one too.
Yeah, his response to Paul Heyman was just Jewish, which does seem...
Yeah. I laughed at that one. But like, he also had a big smile on his face when he said it. And they asked him, Trinity, business or pleasure?
And he was like...
He responded with, wouldn't you like to know?
We would like to know.
Yeah, that's the point. We asked the question.
That's the entire point of asking you these questions, kid.
What was his one for AJ? Was it like overrated?
What? No, I think he just said he was good, didn't he?
I don't know. I thought he was like overrated. Yeah. No, that was Raven or whatever. Raven was like, he's overrated.
Yeah. Did you have any more notes from the show?
From this one, the Sadistic Madness thing's cool. Was that this show?
No.
I gotta mix them up. I'm one ahead. Goodbye, Carino.
You're still one ahead.
What? How am I goodbye? I scrolled one back. The Harris Brothers versus Sandman and Carino. Wasn't this one?
No, we're still on March 5th.
Oh my god, I'm so far ahead.
Well, if you'd like to move on to March 12th, you can say goodbye to Steve Carino.
Yeah, goodbye to Steve Carino.
Who disappears again. He gets killed by the Harris Bros because his partner abandoned him. And to be fair, I'd walk out of the company then too.
Yeah. He's gonna go get his hearing lost from Homicide.
Yeah, maybe if he stayed with TNA, he would have had just the full hearing.
Until Homicide came in.
Yeah, and he would have had a feud with LAX and lost his hearing to Homicide.
They could have done Barbed Wire Massacre in TNA.
Who are you more upset to see the departure of, Liam? Jorge Estrada or Steve Carino?
Jorge Estrada.
Yeah, it's a devastating one to TNA history.
Because Jorge Estrada not only leaves TNA, he basically leaves wrestling.
He does basically never wrestle again.
And Carino gets to go have my favourite feud ever. So,
And
whatever.
not squashed by alleged Nazis.
Well,
I did quite enjoy while on commentary for the Damien 66 and Halloween against Jerry Lynn and David Young match that Conan just basically buried David Young.
yeah, rude.
Just like relentlessly. He's like, this guy sucks, he's terrible. And then he hits a cool spine buster and Mike and Don are like, hey, look. And Conan's like, nah, he's still shit. I quite enjoyed during the Sanders and Jim Duggan match. The only thing I did enjoy about this match was Don West on commentary was like actively being like, you know, I feel a little sorry for Mike Sanders because of how positive this crowd are for Jim Duggan, how pro USA this crowd are. It's not great for Sanders.
And Mike Tenay was like, what? You feel sorry for Mike Sanders?
Aghast at this.
Very funny.
Oh, there was also a segment where Goldilocks was interviewing Eric Watts as Eric Watts was walking in the building, and Jeff Jarrett goes to attack Eric Watts, and Goldilocks just screams at the top of her lungs.
You think she'd be used to this? It happens to her weekly.
She's just like, ah!
Goldilocks rules.
It's like, if you actually watch all of the segments where this happens, she frequently just starts shouting, my God!
Goldie's the best. I hope she never leaves.
Yeah, she's going to be around for a while. You can at least enjoy her while she's here.
Hell yeah.
That's it for that show. You have anything?
Nah.
Which brings us to NWA-TNA pay-per-view number 37, opening with Hacksaw and the Troops.
USA.
Hoovy hit what was meant to be, I think, a 450 in the tag match, and it just ended up being like a senton where he just squashed Jerry Lynn's chest.
Yeah, it's cool. He should just do that.
Oh, as Jim Duggan was making his entrance for the tag match, Mike Tenay saluted him. It was very wholesome.
Wow, Mike Tenay.
As Jim Duggan was demanding the cameraman get out of his way. Like, he saluted Mike Tenay, and then he was like, get out of my way, cameraman!
Lover of a fake war. You hate to see it.
He does love illegitimate wars, doesn't he?
Mike Tenay.
No, how dare you?
If you're the professor, why do you... Huh? You think you're so smart, Mike Tenay?
He is just respecting Jim Duggan, not what Jim Duggan stands for.
Wow, the artist, not the art.
Damn right.
That's right. Mr. Nerd, is it?
Oh, I forgot to mention, Kid Cash did a Chaos Theory, or in the match with the Red and Trinity. It was like, when did Doug Williams start doing the Chaos Theory?
I think he was already doing it.
So he stole it? That's fine. There was actually a note in one of it was the Torture of the Observer that TNA were actually looking at bringing in Doug Williams.
Ah, fun. That seems like... It's really funny to see all these names that they do end up bringing in. But, like, years before.
Do you want to know another interesting one this month in particular? There was rumblings that they would be bringing in Samoa Joe for a dark match.
Oh, really?
Do you know why that's particularly notable this month?
Did he just win the title or something?
He just won the Ring of Honor title in March. I think it was March 22nd. He just beat Xavier for the Ring of Honor title. So there was rumblings that they were interested in bringing him in for some of those dark matches, those tryouts.
Bringing him in for right at the start of like his old-time run.
Yeah. Cutting off Ring of Honor, signing up their cool guys.
Well, they still let Ring of Honor use their guys at this point. So don't think that would have mattered.
So yeah, there's some fun people who were rumbling to come in, but didn't actually come in at that stage.
One day. Maybe. They'll bring some more Joey.
So this is the show where James Mitchell makes his S&M challenge, Sadistic Madness.
Yeah, Sadistic Madness is a cool match tip, but like I guess this is the point to bring it up. Blood has lost all meaning in this company.
It's Raven's fault, though.
Yeah, I mean, but like, yeah, to be fair, it is Raven's fault. But also, like, everyone else is bleeding too. AJ's bleeding now. Everyone in this match is bleeding. If anyone's fault, it's Slash's fault. He started the trend.
Yeah, Slash does bleed when the freaking wind blows.
Yeah, there's just too much blood, and now it feels not gratuitous because I think that's stupid, but it feels like it has. Like I don't feel like ooh blood, you know. I'm like okay, they're bleeding now.
In fact, I don't even think Slash would require wind. You could lock him in like an airlocked room with like
you put him and Raven in an airlock room where they can't move and they just stare at each other and see which one bleeds first.
It will happen because that's what their foreheads are conditioned to be these days. And that brings us to NWA-TNA number 38, March 26th, the last show of the month, which is, as mentioned, the show we did the watch along for at tnachad.com or patreon.com/kiddingme if you would like to listen to our full detailed watch along of this. Where I only did the watch along for the chainsaw moment, but then of course AJ drops the gay slur immediately after.
I did think it was weird that you specifically chose an episode for a slur, but hey, up to you.
No, I chose it for the chainsaw.
If you listen to the watch along, it does sound like you would go, "This is the reason I chose this segment," and then it's AJ dropping the slur.
No, do not misrepresent my opinions. Once again, this relentless assault on my takes and my personality and my decency, just taking me on all the time. Which means, in typical fashion, I don't have many notes for this. Do you have anything?
No.
There we go.
Go listen to us go, "Wow, this show, funny, haha, meme."
Yeah, Perry Saturn shows up, Liam hates him.
Yeah. Yeah, alright, well, since we're in the second hour now, right? We can bring up our points of contention against each other.
Uh-huh.
So, Garrett, recently, both of us appeared on other podcasts in the VOW network.
Sure.
You appeared on the 5-Star Match Game as a special guest judge. A wonderful appearance, by the way. I listened to the show.
Thank you.
I appeared on Music of the Mat with Andrew Rich to talk about spooky Halloween themes.
A wonderful appearance that I definitely listened to.
Yeah, yep. Of course, in my appearance, I went on there, represented the brand. I gave tnachad.com a shout out. I gave myself a shout out. I gave Garrett a shout out, of course, as, you know, a good podcast co-host would do. And then I'm listening to 5-Star Match Game. And I'm like, oh, Garrett, he's going to go in there, he's going to put out the paid service, obviously, because that's a given. And then, if he feels ever so obliged, he may even shout out his co-host as well on the podcast. And then, to my horror, I was betrayed.
Because not only did I not shout you out, I didn't shout out the Patreon either, which I would never do in front of a potentially new audience. I would always say that you can sample our free work before you would ever pay for something, because I'm a man of decency and honor, Liam.
It's not an angle. I wish it was an angle.
I plugged my Disney podcast instead.
Yeah, what the fuck was that?
Which you can listen to at magicbydesign.buzzsprout.com.
No, don't listen to it. I refuse.
Ken listens to this show, so thumbs up, Ken, my brother and podcast host. You can follow Ken on Twitter at, I think it's Ken Kidney.
Yeah, this is why I'm an Ed Kidney guy.
Yeah, so you can go to at Ken Kidney on Twitter, you can follow Ken. That's it for the March 2003 episode of You've Got to Be Kidding Me. Thank you so much for listening. If you would like to support the show more, you can go to tnachad.com or patreon.com/kiddingme. Or you can subscribe and you can get our watch along. You can get Monday War Games. We just did a Q&A that went up, and you can get all fun stuff that you can support us. If you just like the show, you want to throw some bucks and get something in return, tnachad.com. It's a perfect place to go.
Now he knows how to plug it.
Because I'm on my own podcast, and the people who have listened all the way through to all of our nonsense are the people most likely to support us. And maybe you want to throw a few bucks. But if you don't, that's also very cool. You can follow me on Twitter at Garrett Kidney. You can follow the podcast on Twitter at TNA History Pod. Thank you so much for listening.
Oh, fuck you! Fuck you!
You can follow Liam on Twitter at Delete Buddha. Thank you. We'll be back next week with the finale of Monday War Games. As we mentioned, the watch along of the last show of the month is up now, so you can listen to that. And we'll be back in 2 weeks with April 2003. So thanks for listening, and bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh yeah, you could be king of these nuts, you know what I'm